if, I'm just gonna give you an example, if there's like a little taco house getting put in on a commercial piece of land, and they're just gonna start a little area where they're needing to start the plumbing and the electricity, but they're gonna give us a, what is it called, a site map or a drawing?
Yeah, they give us some plans,
So
basically
yes,
sketches.
yeah, sketches. And what people are being told by, I don't know if it's the company you're with, is that they're needing an engineer to sketch out those sketches, and I think I've never heard of that.
Okay, you said it was for housing though?
Yeah, housing, yeah, like, well, right now what I'm questioning is like a little building it's a portable building that's gonna get
Right.
placed on a property. And the sketches that they turned in, they said they weren't sufficient enough, that they needed to be an engineer sketch.
Okay, well, typically, with portable buildings, they have the stamp on the outside of
Yes.
the building showing what it's approved for.
Yes,
And it'll show, and you can look that up to see if it's meant for, habitability or not.
yes,
If it is, and if it's already been approved, then that's not gonna be an issue.
okay, that's what I thought.
But if you go in and you bring the portable building in and make modifications on the inside, we have to make sure that it meets the minimum standards of bedroom dimensions, bathroom dimensions. The windows have to be a certain size for emergency egress.
Okay.
Like you said, with the energy and everything else.
Yes, because that has to fall under the energy code.
Yeah, so that's totally different than what the building was actually approved for. The building is actually approved for habitability, but when you go in there and you make modifications,
Then
we have to
that
make
becomes
sure
a
that it
different-
meets the minimum
Okay.
standards.
And one final question on home. So if somebody were to build a home and they decide, they fall under the wind bracing inspections, is that correct?
Well, like I said, in Pearsall, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay, so that's what we have been telling people, and that's just, it's just kind of discouraging, and that's why we're having this meeting, is just to get knowledgeable on what we're asking these people to turn into us. But you answered my questions. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Derek,
Yes, ma'am.
on that end, just to make sure I understand, we give the directives to AEP as to what they require for new service. Is that, or for even this existing service? Is that, am I misunderstanding? Because they came in and talked, I believe, I don't know if you recall if you were at the meeting, but I know we had the meeting, and it was, they basically said that the regulations that we impose is what they go by based on the type of inspections we need for anybody that wants to come in and turn on services. That's what I understood.
And you talking about with AEP?
Yes, sir?
Yes.
So with that, what they have in here, what I gave to the city council is we basically said, whenever somebody comes in to turn on service, according to what AEP is saying, to what they're saying our regulations are, when we come in to turn on services, all they're going in and doing a basic inspection of the panel, or you guys are doing the inspection of the panel, and that's pretty much it. That's what we've been doing, is what I was told by AEP is what needed to be done. Is that right or no?
Their responsibility is the service drop
Mm-hmm.
to the meter can.
Okay.
That's it.
And what's ours then?
All the rest of it is y'all's.
Right, so what I'm getting at
That's
is,
what we look at.
if they say that there's an inspection is required, the question becomes, okay, what type of inspection and what's the purpose of the
Is it a
inspection?
licensed electrician or just an inspection done by the homeowner?
It's an inspection done by the city at the request of whoever it is that's requesting the service to be turned on, is what it's been doing. That's what's been happening.
So is that the requirement?
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but, yeah, I'm gonna call AEP tomorrow and talk to them about that, because, you know, I've heard of that where, somebody moves out and next week they, I don't know, I think y'all have different providers, is that correct?
Yes, we're deregulated.
Okay, so if you have a different provider, the AEP will come in and say, well, you need to have an inspection done before we change providers.
Right.
And even though it's only been 3 days, I'm gonna have to talk to them about that because, well, I'm not gonna get into my personal feelings, but, I'll discuss that with
Mayor,
Guillaume.
one more question. Okay, sir, I have, just if, whenever you make that call with AEP, because this has been a real big headache, and I'm just saying because for practically my whole adulthood that I would come out here and help, people with their transfer of electricity here at the city, it was only up till maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that they actually the city was enforcing, the licensed electrician to sign off on the form that they give the city. And what they used to do as a homeowner that it does rental properties is that the owner of the home would sign off on the electricity part and the plumbing part. So they would sign off on it, but this,
To answer that question, the only way that we can perform an inspection is to apply for a permit for an inspection. And in accordance with the state, it has to be a licensed electrician to pull the permit.
okay,
And they have to have the insurance and, and everything. They have to be responsible master electrician, responsible master plumber.
okay.
They have to be qualified for that to issue to ask for the permit.
Okay, yeah, so the owner of the home will have to have a master electrician, or could the city go in there with their master electrician to review it?
Okay.
We don't have
We don't
one?
have master
So who's the ones that go out there and
Well,
inspect?
No,
let
ma'am.
me,
No, the
Derek,
city-
let me,
The
Derek,
city does not get involved with the electrical and
So,
stuff.
yeah, but who goes out there for us when we do the inspection?
They do. Derek, what's been happening over the years, and I'll kind of, on just basic, I'm talking these type
But
of,
aren't they master
I'm saying they're
electricians?
simple inspections, is what's happened over the years, from what I gather, is somebody on the private side, an electrician, would go and sign off on these permits saying that they've inspected this work, that, or whatever, whatever it was that needed to get permitted, right? And so they
Correct.
bring that over to the city and say, okay, so we would never, on the city side, we never had an inspector, a qualified inspector on our end to say, yeah, we agree, we, the city, agree, based on inspectors we either have hired on payroll or that we've hired outsourced, which is you guys, to sign off on our end. That's what I think the confusion is that's what's been the process. So there's been some folks on the private side, electricians, that in essence sign off on what was perceived to be, I would say, an inspection.
Okay, yeah, well, and if are we still talking about transfer of service?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yes.
that's part of what AEP is saying, is whenever we transfer service, there has to be an inspection, is what they're saying. And so we don't
Okay.
have any, you guys are our inspectors, so we don't have anybody else to do the inspecting. Used to be an electrician that would go and sign off on this, that would do it on behalf of the homeowner.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, and see, and what we do is we go and inspect what the
Because we
master
pay them.
electrician does.
Right.
They're not qualified to do the inspections, they're qualified to do the work. If they need to make some improvements, then they need to request a permit and request an inspection
Right.
to get it up to code.
Yep.
But if it's just a transfer of service, like I said, if it's only 3 days later and they're transferring companies, that's something I'll have to talk to AEP with,
Yep.
because I really, I'll go ahead and say it, it's not necessary.
Right.
exactly.
Right.
We have another question, Councilman Hernandez.
Derek, I was in at that meeting with AEP, and their concern is that there have been modifications done to the electrical in a lot of cases, and they've run into that. And when you turn on power, who assumes responsibility? Well, it's gonna be the city if we issue the certificate of occupancy. And I believe that's AEP's concern.
Well, you're not, the city's not actually issuing a CO. All they're requesting is a transfer of utilities.
Well,
So, I mean,
Mr. Reyes,
Oh, hold on a
And,
second.
and that's completely up to the city, how they wanna, resolve that. You know, if you want us to continue to do the inspections, but like I said, if the power's been on and the next day it gets transferred over to, you know, say, somebody's been living there for 5 years and they see that a different provider is a lot cheaper, then they go ahead and switch over. And then all of a sudden they have to pay the permit fees, they have to pay for the electrician to come out. It's a lot of extra cost on the homeowner, or the rental owner, or the rental property, just to have a transfer of provider. So,
Did you have a question? Okay, Mr. Smith, we got one more question for Councilman Leal.
Well, just the way kind of,
Can you hear him, Mr. Smith?
You're gonna have to grab it.
so, I know that in the city of San Antonio, the way they do it there is they turn on power. The city of San Antonio comes after the power's turned on, they inspect it, and then after they inspect it, they issue the permit or they grant the permit.
Temporary service.
So basically, they have temporary service from the moment that CPS turns it on to the moment that the city of San Antonio comes and inspects it.
that's with the transfer of service.
It's either, I
E-service.
don't know if transfer service how it works, but it's whenever the
It don't work.
the system has been upgraded
Modified.
or has been
Been
modified.
Right.
Right, and
Temporary.
yeah, that's what we do. If there's any alterations or modifications to the service, then that's typically what's done as a temporary power. And then after everything is, we do the rough in, and then we do the finals. And then once that all is approved, then we issue, we approve the finals, then everything is okay. We do the same thing.
Okay, because I know that there's been some questions risen where, there was a gentleman that wasn't gonna get power turned on because there was no inspection. This was some weeks back. But also there was a question asking who's liable for that. And I think the person that's liable for that is the person that's doing the work. That's why the masters have the umbrella insurance, because they're responsible for any work done to that system, correct?
Correct, and according to state law, they have to have at least a journeyman electrician do the work.
It doesn't have to be a master.
And they're working underneath the master electrician, and the master electrician has, like you said, the umbrella.
The master electrician has to sign off on the plans, has to sign off on everything.
Not the journeyman.
Correct, and you'll use his license to approve the permit application.
Correct.
The journeyman can do the work,
Right.
and he can have an apprentice that can help him out with assisting with bringing wire, bringing conduit, bringing MC cable, whatever needs to be done.
At the end of the day, it's just the fact that the master has to be the one to sign off, the master has
Whether
to be
he
the
did it or
one
not.
that it's his business, he's on the line.
Correct. Yeah, and that's why he has the insurance, and that's why he's approved by the state to apply for the permits.
And that is probably why most cities have a contractors list, correct?
Yes. Yeah, and what you can do is you can go online and you can pull up all the responsible master electricians, all the
We're very
responsible
limited
master
here.
plumbers, all the responsible master, the mechanical that has.
Everything. You can put everything on TDLR.
Right.
You can pull it all up online.
Now, let me ask you this, since we're on inspections and everything, do we have any code in the city of Pearsall for irrigation?
Plumbing code.
Quite honestly, I have not read through all of Pearsall's ordinances. I've read through some of it, but I deal with a lot of other cities, so I do not want to get it confused. But the main thing about irrigation, and I'll just go back to state law. The main concern is cross connection.
Correct.
Anything else?
Um,
Okay, well,
Typically,
council, any other
plumbing code
questions?
requires, RPZs for irrigation because they consider them high hazard. But the state came in and said, no, they're low hazard because of, political pullback. And, so double checks, PPVs, you have to have something like that installed at the point of entry, or typically what they'll do is, if they use a PVB or an SPV, something like that, they'll run it to the house, and then they'll distribute around the house for the irrigation.
Okay,
And that protects the city water.
correct,
And that's a TCEQ requirement.
correct.
And double checks, most of the time they'll put them close to the water meter. And they have, by state law, they have to be tested once they're installed.
Okay.
But they are required for irrigation,
Any other
because
questions?
they are considered a hazard. But as far as the design aspect of it, I don't get involved with that. I used to be licensed, where I used to be, I used to deal with irrigation. But, when I do inspections, the main thing I worry about is just the cross connection part of it.
All right, well,
And
Mr.
that's just to
Smith,
protect the
thank
public
you.
water supply.
Mr. Smith, thank you, we appreciate that, information, and this, again, council, this was a non-action item, mostly for your information, there's some good dialogue there, so, okay, very good. All right, council, we're moving on now to new business 7A, I'm gonna ask.
Mayor, I just have a quick comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
On that one, I want to ask the council if we can bring this back at another time, just because, we're paying him for services to do what they're telling us to do. Obviously, his people have been giving us the wrong information, and it's causing a lot of people frustration, and, we're paying them for their services. So I would like to, bring this back on the agenda where we discuss it, where we can make it an action item on what we're gonna do with this. We hired this company to give us right information, to be dependent on them. And for the last couple of years, we've been giving misinformation, which gives the people that wanna build discouragement. And I've spoken with a lot of people building homes and businesses. Their frustration is through the roof. So I really think that it would be best for us as a council to talk about this and make this an action item to see where we can go from here, and to make sure that we have the correct information that we're giving out to our citizens.
Councilwoman Rodriguez, we will certainly do that. I've heard some complaints, I'm sure you guys all have. There needs to be a process, and we need to protect, the ordinances need to be in place. But it does sound like there's been some confusion, and the bottom line is we want people to build.
Yes.
We want them to
We
build and
want
improve their house.
businesses, we want new houses, we want it
And it
all.
doesn't need to be any more frustrating
Yes.
than it is, but there will be a level, but we need to be clear on that, so we will definitely bring that back.
Yes.
So, thank you. Okay, council, next is 7A. I'm gonna request that we move this, to 9, make it a B. And I'm gonna request the council with their approval that we discuss this in executive session. There's some things we need to talk about there, so do I need to get a motion for that, Bobby?
Motion for what?
To move item 7A to 9 would be B, and so that we can discuss this in executive session.
Mayor, I know that's what you've done in the past, and that's probably what council is most familiar with. So, for purposes of consistency, I think, since it wasn't on the agenda as a closed session item, it may be much easier just to have council agree to go back to.
Council, I'd like you to consider that, make a motion, and I'll discuss more in executive session, and then we'll bring it back in open session to discuss.
You want to
more.
move to 8B, right?
And we'll make it 9B, so that it's in open session.
Open session 9B, but we gotta move it to 8B, so we have a closed session, right?
We'll post it, yeah, you're right, we'll post it in executive session and then also talk about it.
And I'm sorry, Mayor, were you, and I'm confused,
We're
which,
moving an open item to
Moving,
A.
okay,
7A.
So that would
7A.
be the one, if you would just let the council know under which provision, under which section or exception you want to go into closed session.
Yeah,
I was confusing out with the other one that is listed for closed session.
yeah, you're right, Councilman Liao, I'm requesting that you guys consider moving it to an 8B, an executive session, and then we'll discuss it in open section as 9B. If you guys would, somebody would make a motion in a second?
I'll make a motion, go ahead and move